Good afternoon and welcome to our presentation with Andrea Shellman, um, Poetry and Pieces workshop, and we're going to look at an art piece together. Um, we will hold questions till the end. This is a group meeting. Let me just share my screen and fill you in. I hear you, buddy. Um, Welcome, Andrea Shellman and Lisa Leong Tot for Poetry and Pieces workshop, um, visual arts. Views expressed by the speakers and workshop facilitators do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the organizing groups. All programming uses the Zoom meeting or webinar format. The webinar format is to prevent unexpected interruptions. Questions for speakers can be submitted using the Q&A chat function. This will be slightly different because we are going to be able to chat with each other. Um, oops. The whole program and presentation is being hosted by the Black Project, which is the Black Literacy and Arts Collaborative here in Boston. They support resources for literacy and arts in communities of color. They run mentorship programs and have storytelling to build medical trust projects, Spread the Love program, and book giveaways. You can learn more about that at theblackproject.org. This program is also hosted by The People's Heart, which is a program born at MGH, but lives in the community and between the healthcare institution and collaborate to create space. Our mission is to change institutional healthcare culture and empower underserved patients and communities of color through art and design. The programs for us include art on walls, workshops, lectures, and pop-up health events. And you can read more about us at thepeoplesheart.org. And I am now going to stop sharing and pass on the reins to Andrea Shellman, who's going to walk us through this experience of learning how to look at a piece of work.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction as well as the opportunity to be here. Really looking forward to celebrating Black History Month with the two of you, and just grateful for all of the opportunities that the People's Heart and folks across MGB as well as Black and other organizations have provided for us to celebrate and honor Black people across the diaspora. And today, as you mentioned, we're going to talk about some artwork. One of the things that I have been thinking about and considering is how we can use art to discuss matters related to race, racism, and health equity. And so I'll share a little bit about some of my thoughts, and then we will pull up a piece and discuss together. We have a nice, small, intimate group, so I hope that you both will be encouraged to share along the way and invite questions at any time. We can keep it pretty informal. We'll actually start with a brief meditation. I know we were talking about meditation earlier, and so I have a feeling Lisa's a meditation pro. So I'm not. But we will just do something simple. And actually, earlier this week, Lisa shared with us or led us in a discussion of a piece by Amanda Gorman, The Hill We Climb. And so I wanted to also start this session with a small piece of that poem. I'm going to share my screen if I can figure this out. All right, hopefully you can see my screen now. And this was kind of the final portion of the poem. And it reads, when day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. There is always light if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. So I offer this kind of as our meditation. I'm going to give us a couple of moments to rest. As we were saying earlier, rest is important. You can reflect upon these words and these images if you'd like, or if there's anything else that you'd like to just sort of ponder and contemplate. And I just realized I have some audio, but I may not have shared my audio. So hold, if you would just hold for one moment. Let me start this again. And again, this will just be for a couple minutes. Thank you. Since we have a small group, I think it would be nice for us to do some introductions. And I'm going to share in our chat a link. In this link, you will find many images. And there it is for you. And if you could identify an image that maybe either represents who you are, how you're feeling, or your hopes for the future. It doesn't have to represent all of those things, but maybe one of those things. And then I'll give you some time to select an image, and then we'll go around with introductions. You could just share your name, your race or ethnicity, the gender pronouns that you identify by, and then a little bit about the image that you selected and how you identified with it. So I will give us all a few moments to pick and see, or see and pick. And when you're ready, if you could just give me a thumbs up, and then I'll. All right.
And Dre, you've given us so many different beautiful options. This is not an easy task so quickly.
Yeah.
Do you want us to share the choice or?
Oh yeah, sorry, I did. I might have missed your thumbs up that you're ready. So you're
Oh,
you're all set?
yes.
Okay. All right. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, no problem. Sure. Lisa, if you'd like to start, just share your name, your race and ethnicity, and gender pronouns, and then the image. And um, yeah, just tell me the title of the image, and then I can pull it up as well for us all to see at the same time.
Okay, so my name is Lisa Leongtat. The title of the image is From the City to the Sea. I am I am Black, from the Caribbean. My pronouns are she, hers. And yeah, what else was I supposed to share?
Just curious, why you selected this image. What was it that you identified with, or in terms of how you're feeling, or yeah.
So this is always where I want to be. This is always, um, if there is any ideal space, this is always where I want to operate from. So even while I'm at work, with all the balls being thrown around, this is literally where I hope and aspire to be operating from, because I think this piece just embodies calmness. The title says from the city to the sea. Um, and this idea of looking beyond and looking at this wide horizon, but not being overwhelmed by the magnitude of what is before you, right? So looking ahead at this greatness, but looking ahead of it in an almost serene space. And that kimono, dashiki, whatever that is, speaks to me. Whatever it is she has on, just colors, brightness. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Dia, would you like to go next?
Sure. Um, my name is Dia Ghosh, and I identify as a cisgender woman, and so she and her are my pronouns as well. I had a hard time selecting one. I feel like I'm in various places today, so I'll just tell you what they are. Um, Henri Matisse, The Dance, uh, Morris Lewis, Point of Tranquility, and Barclay Hendricks, Superman, were the three that I identified with. And I'm sorry that there are three and I couldn't choose one.
It's okay.
I feel very torn in different places today. And so each one I think represents a different part of where I am today. The dance, Henri Matisse's dance, is an old uh, love of mine. As a young teenager, this was an image that I was always drawn to, um, because of the connection that I felt. And as an artist, he was also a collaborator. Uh, and much of his work was done in collaboration in some form. He might have been working on his own, but he collaborated with artists and his social group. He was very socially connected to his group. Um, and so I was identifying with that thought. And so moving forward to Morris Lewis, The Point of Tranquility, the colors and the forms coming together in its shape felt like a container, and all of the different colors that exist and contrast and come together was very soothing and reflected my background of very colorful India. And I'm an immigrant, an Indian of Indian descent. And so this is color I identify with um, and miss it in the context that I live in currently in the cold in Boston. And finally, Barclay Hendricks, Superman. Superman was one of the first VHS tapes that we had as a child, and so I identify with the strength that Superman brings and the ability to go back and forth between worlds, and to have him represented here as a Black man is very empowering to me. And he's just ready. He just seems ready for whatever is coming his way. And I'm grateful for that energy today. So sorry. I had a lot to say, I guess.
No apology is necessary. And thank you for sharing. I think, going through this exercise provides this opportunity to reflect on ourselves as well as to learn about others and or people and their experiences as well. So I always appreciate the opportunity to hear and to learn and to know just a little bit more about each other. In terms of me, again, my name is Andrea Shellman. I identify as Black African American. I use the she series of pronouns. And the image that I selected was this Sally Dang. I just forgot the name of it. Fantastic something. And I just really appreciated the energy and the sense of adventure that I see in this image. And I feel like there are some significant changes that I'm kind of going through professionally, some things personally as well. And that in many ways, it's like just a great adventure. And I have mixed feelings about it. Part of it seems like really fun, as well as like if you look at the characters, some of these characters like really excited and yay, let's go forward. That little dude in the back looks like he's like scared to death and he may not want to be may want to be there. They've brought their friends. They not only do they have people with them, but they have their stuffed animals for comfort. And you see the little person in the front that's embracing the penguin, who I guess you could contemplate whether or not they're really stuffed animals. But I just appreciated sort of the mixed emotions of being on this great adventure. And that's kind of how I'm feeling, mixed emotions, but also really, really excited at the same time. So that is me, and that's the piece that I identified with. I am going to just share a few slides about, as I mentioned, some of the things I've been contemplating as it relates to racism, equity, and art, and then we will discuss a piece together. So let's see if I can get this to work. All right. Hold on just a second. It's weird. It's like my slides aren't coordinated with each other. So we'll try to make this work. Okay. Thanks for your patience. So this piece here is a sculpture by Paul Briggs. He's actually a local artist in the area. And the reason why I selected it sort of as just an intro image is that I feel like at times it can be challenging to discuss race, racism, health inequities, and many of the issues that permeate our culture and lives. And I like to use art sort of as a third thing for engaging people's mind, heart, and conversations around these topics. If you're not familiar with the term third thing, it's a term that Parker Palmer and some other people develop as a pedagogical approach. So you have a third thing, which is like an object, an image, or text that serves as a reflective trigger and or conversational mediator to help create a safe space for sharing stories and perspectives. So art being the third thing that I would like to use to talk about race and racism and health equity. I also just wanted to share a couple of definitions just to set some context. Racism being a system of structuring opportunity and assigning value based on the societal interpretation of how one looks, which is what we call race, that unfairly disadvantages some individuals and communities, unfairly advantages other individuals and communities, and saps the strength of the whole society through the waste of potential. And next we have, oops, sorry, like I said, things are uncoordinated with me right now. Health equity, which is the opportunity for everyone to attain his or her full health potential. No one is disadvantaged from achieving this potential because of his or her social position, such as class or socioeconomic status, or socially assigned circumstance, such as race, gender, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, geography, etc. And this is a definition that was developed by the Southern Jamaica Plain Health Center, one of the health centers affiliated with Brigham and Women's Hospital and Mass General Brigham. Next, we just have a few images of art and sculpture that I think helps us to consider as well as confronts some of the challenges that we have in this country with race and racism. So this first image here is from the National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Montgomery, Alabama. This is the nation's first memorial dedicated to the legacy of enslaved Black people terrorized by lynching, African Americans humiliated by racial segregation and Jim Crow, and people of color burdened with contemporary presumptions of guilt and police violence. It's set on a 6-acre site. The memorial uses sculpture, art, and design to contextualize racial terror. The site includes a memorial square with 800 6-foot monuments to symbolize thousands of racial terror lynching victims in the United States and the counties and states where this terrorism took place. This next image here is by Dorothy Burge. It's called Trayvon Could Be My Son. And let's see, I'll admit somebody here. Okay, welcome. We're just in the process of looking at a few images, and shortly after that, we are going to discuss a piece together. So in terms of what Burge has said about this piece, and others as well, says Burge's quilt invokes the memory of a Florida teen, Trayvon Martin, who was fatally shot in 2012 by a neighborhood watch volunteer, igniting nationwide protests and spurring dialogue about racial profiling. Burge shows her great nephew wearing a hoodie and holding candy and a beverage as Martin was when he was shot. And this next beautiful image is of Brianna Taylor. I think many of us are familiar with her story as well. Amy Sherald, the artist that created this image, is the same artist that also created the portrait of our First Lady, or former First Lady, Michelle Obama. And so to me, it's interesting how in such a tragic event, Brianna was shot and killed in her home by police who entered with a no-knock warrant, how she's been honored and lifted up. And I would say even through this image, elevated to the height of Michelle Obama. I had the chance to actually see this in person, and it was really powerful. It's interesting to see art live versus see it in an image. All right. So I know some of that was a little bit heavy. which, can also be sort of our history of this country. But I did want to provide sort of just a glimpse of how art has been used to reflect the times, reflect history, provoke us to sort of think about situations and discuss in our times in ways that maybe even words can't. So we're going to transition, hopefully to a slightly lighter note, but also, giving opportunity to consider the context and the times to a piece of art. And there'll be 3 questions that we use to guide this conversation. One is, what's going on in this image? The second is, what do you see that makes you say that? And the third is, what more can we find? And as we discuss the piece, just kind of keep in mind, we're not necessarily seeking a right answer. I know that, many of us in our day-to-day lives, we're like, yes, we have to know exactly what to do next, or, of course, 2 + 2 = 4. This is not that kind of situation. You can just describe what you see and what your own impressions are, sort of build off of each other or disagree. That's another possibility as well. And yeah, so Cindy, if you're willing and able, I would love to see your face. If not, that's fine too. And just feel free, everybody, to jump in as you'd like. If you feel more comfortable typing in the chat or raising your hand, feel free to do that as well. So I will start with our image. And I'll just give you all a few moments to ponder it, and then we will get started. And as I'm talking, if you see me look over to the side, it's because I'm sort of navigating between 2 screens. I'm paying attention, but I know in this Zoom world, it can be a little bit awkward. All right, so I invite anybody to jump in. What's going on in this image?
From a very simplistic point, and just to describe it, there's a young boy, a young black boy, playing a violin. He's holding it in his right hand and the bow in his left. And there are birds, maybe sparrows or finches, coming out of a broken vase, and the vase is broken on the bottom and is intact on top. And the expression on in his eyes seems bewildered or lost, and I'm not sure which it is. I have seen this image before, and it was very striking to me, and the first time as well. And I continue to sit wondering what he might be wondering in the juxtapositions that are presented with the right hand, left hand, and the broken vase on the bottom versus the top, and the birds flying out of this broken space.
Okay, so I'm just going to try to capture some of the things that you mentioned. And you mentioned that you see a black boy here playing violin. You noted sort of the position that he's in. So he has his right hand is holding the violin, and then his left hand here is holding the bow.
Mm-hmm.
You have some birds here. You mentioned might be sparrows that are flying out of a vase that's sort of broken at the bottom, but is intact towards the top. And then you mentioned the expression of the boy, that something about him appears maybe a little bit bewildered. And you kind of wonder maybe what he's wondering in this state. What do you see that makes you say that he looks bewildered? And if I've captured that incorrectly, if it's something else, feel free to correct me as well. But
You captured that perfectly. Uh, his eyes are wide open. His expression is his eyes are wide open, and he just seems to be looking at a direction, but not really looking to where he's looking. Um, and it's off away from the birds too, which made me wonder. Um, that's how I kind of read that, as being bewildered.
Hmm. So that you a lot of what you're saying kind of focuses on his eyes.
Mhm.
You noted again that his eyes are open, that he appears to be kind of looking at something, but maybe not focused on anything particular. And it didn't seem to you that he was looking at the birds. Um, and all of this sort of contrast between maybe the eyes being open and looking at something, but not quite sure what he's looking at, sort of leads to this maybe feeling or sentiment of bewilderment.
Maybe, yeah. He seems to be looking past the birds, even, if I can say that.
Yeah. So perhaps somewhere beyond where the birds are.
Yeah, and in the opposite direction. Excuse me, of where the birds are going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you look at the direction that the birds are traveling, he's looking in the opposite direction of where they might be headed to.
Right.
What more can we find?
When I see the birds, I immediately think of liberation. Um, I think of them escaping out of this small container and taking flight into this wider world. I don't know why they were there to begin with. Um, and I've seen this before, and each time I see it, I always think of I know why the caged bird sings. I don't know why, but that always comes up. Um, I too agree with the boy's gaze being past the birds, and I'm inclined to wonder whether or not, because I noticed maybe there are no strings on the violin. And so I wonder if he is pretending to give them an escape, so to speak, um, by playing, because they were confined in this vase or vase and unable to sing. And so he is sort of trying to set the example of what they should be doing because they don't know how to sing because they were caged in.
Okay. So Lisa's kind of drawing our attention again to these birds. And it is apparent that perhaps the birds were maybe trapped inside the vase and are now free. And that sort of brings to your mind some themes potentially of liberation, them being contained in this vase, questioning as well why they might be in the vase or how they got in there. Um, you, similar to what Dia had mentioned, think that the young boy here is looking maybe past the birds, I should say, not quite in their direction. And you also brought up something new about the violin, the fact that the violin doesn't appear to have any strings on it, as you might expect a violin that somebody to is playing to have. You mentioned potentially some like relationship or communication or sort of modeling that the young boy may be doing for these birds, that he's modeling for them kind of how to be free and how to live as they have been trapped in this situation and are now out. And also, I forgot to mention earlier that this image, which you've seen before, reminds you of I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. which is a book by Maya Angelou, right? Um, I'm curious about sort of the idea of him modeling or setting an example for the birds, and was wondering if you could share what do you see that makes you think that he might be sort of showing them the way?
You know, one of the things that I talk about a lot is this idea of approaching life with a childlike wonder. And so he is not concerned with why they got in there, who put them in there. He just now understands that they're free, but recognizing that they're free, but possibly not even knowing how to really take flight, right? Because the one at the bottom is stepping out really carefully and cautiously at this newfound freedom. And so one thing is, yes, there are no strings, but to a child, you know, gently making the motions will create the music, because the music is ethereal, it's in his head, right? And so this wonder, curiosity, and wide imagination that is of a child that we tend to forget as we become adults. So just recognizing and appreciating um, this idea that even without strings, I can play music. Um, and again, setting that example for the birds. And even if the birds do know how to sing, I think hearing something that they can reciprocate will sort of endear that they go about and do that, right? So if indeed they were caged up and have never sung before, listening to that music that this child is playing without the strings will sort of set a tone for what they're supposed to do now that they're released.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm late, but I wanted to add something to that too with the modeling. It looks like the bird that's on the bow is in the stance of a conductor with the wings.
Yep, right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think just to reiterate some of the things that both of you are mentioning, the sense that youth and children have this curiosity and wonder that maybe goes beyond what is seen and what we would know to be true. So he can see, you know, the birds are coming out of the vase, but he's not harping on like, oh, how did you get there? He just knows that they are free. He probably can see the fact that this violin does not have any strings on it, yet he can still play it and produce music, you know, be it in his head or his imagination. And maybe even that's something that the birds too can perceive and model after. He's playing a song and the birds can also sing as well. You mentioned specifically this bird down here that although that bird is free too, that maybe is a little bit tentative to step out and kind of gingerly stepping out of the vase. And then the Cindy mentioning this bird here, you know, we've been talking a lot about music and song. The positioning of the bird itself in terms of its wings almost looks like a conductor that would be conducting an orchestra or some musicians in playing music and song. What more can we find?
When you say that, Andrea, it's so funny, the image or the expression on his face when you reiterated what what Cindy and Lisa just said, and when you put it together, his expression for me changed. Um, all of a sudden, you know, I looked a little closer, and I feel that excitement and that imagination, and a hope that I hadn't necessarily noticed before.
Yeah, so kind of just through this process of discussing and hearing things differently, seeing a shift even in your own mindset about the expression on his face.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's not bewilderment, but maybe it is hope or wonder, or that curiosity,
Right.
creativity.
And Lisa pointing out the fact that, there are no strings on that violin, and that, maybe there is no need for that because our mind can travel
Hmm.
and imagine.
Yeah. His young mind being able to understand and have a conversation. There's no strings and there's no talking, but they're, understanding one another.
Right.
Yep. Despite not having the strings, despite the fact that, you know, birds and, as we typically think, birds and people don't speak in the same language, that they can still communicate with one another.
Particularly young people.
Yeah. For those of us who haven't reached a certain age, or maybe it's at heart too. Maybe it's beyond a numeric number, but
Hmm.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in and say, children remind us to stay curious and imaginative, and so I like that this image is of a young boy, um, and it's almost inspiring that it is, because it reminds us adults to return to that playful space of, okay, you don't know what's going on all over, and maybe everything's not working. Um, as it should, but we can try anyway, and we can connect anyway.
yeah. So Dia, you're kind of reminding us of, like, how does this piece speak to us, and what does it say to us as a piece of art? How does it challenge us? So does maybe it challenges us to think of things with a youthful, childlike frame, with curiosity and hope and creativity, um, to maybe see beyond things as they appear and as they are. I know that we are running short on time, and I feel like we could probably continue this discussion. Um, there are elements of the image that we haven't talked about yet, but this image, and one of the reasons why I picked it is, it's a mural that was part of the Beyond Walls exhibition, and I'm sure Dia probably knows a lot, or all of you may know a lot more about this piece and the mural series that was created, and also the connection to the people's heart. But I did want to just sort of use one of these pieces, and something that we have the potential for physically seeing. Can you remind me, what is this? Is in Lowell, right? I believe it's in Lowell, the city of Lowell. And I will share with you all. It's called Comforting Sounds. If you're interested in learning more about it, you are welcome to do so. But in closing, or actually, you know what? Let's not do that. We have about 5 minutes.
Take your time, Andrea. It's okay. We can finish our conversation.
Oh, you just muted yourself in the middle of.
Sorry. I'm trying, I'm getting messages. I think life is just happening around us, and, people want things. But we're going to go back to the beginning of this conversation when we started with rest and time and being here and being present with what it is we have in our hand, which is this image. So please, continue.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to kind of give us time to reflect on the process and discussion and how that went for you. Any thoughts that you might have?
I really liked starting with meditation, and I might be a little biased. But also I really like that. So I have that same, someone sent me Amanda Gorman's piece with that same phrase in it that I never found out who it was, which was amazing because I put it all over. But that really resonated And I'm not sure how you came to choose that and meditation, but I thought it just blended really nicely to set the stage for sort of clearing your mind to then watch images, so that you're not, um, coming into the space with a whole lot of other things. So I really liked that. I think I might have that piece, and a lot of art pieces challenge me because I think so black and white, pardon that pun, but everything is always straight. So to be able to look at that and have the time, what is it that you're seeing? What is it you're not seeing? And what could this potentially be? Was really good in being able to appreciate a piece of art. And again, it's always this idea of slowing down time to be able to be in the present, to fully experience what is happening. So that for me was really very nice. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And picking that piece of the poem was easy because you had already presented it for us, and
Yeah.
that part resonated with me, and I was able to find an image easily online.
I would have to echo those sentiments of, just slowing down and looking at the piece, because, a lot of times we'll drive by a mural and it's like, oh, that's nice. And you saw like half of it, but to be able to stop and talk about what we saw, and I mean, things that I wouldn't have thought of if I was just looking at it on my own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some say, or have done research, and they've noticed that people looking at art, say in a museum or other places, they typically only look for it for like 10 to 15 seconds at most, and then they've moved on. Whereas we spent a good 20, 25 minutes just looking at one piece.
And as an artist and an art therapist in a previous life, I like the idea of the third hand being here. And I understand how long it took the artist to create that piece. And for us to spend 30 seconds looking at it, we lose so much of the meaning that the artist has taken time and energy and research to put in. And I'm sure that there's conversation about the placement of the piece as well, which is important to the piece itself, to what it's saying. I echo what Lisa and Cindy said. I When we looked at it together, it gave us time to develop a thought and develop a feeling and give us time to actually move from one emotion to the next as we see it, rather than just sitting in the one first impression that we had.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate all of your active involvement and participation in it. So I just wanted to thank you. And I think kind of we'll maybe close this in a similar vein to how we started. There is a poem that goes along with this piece. And if you are willing, I would love if maybe each of you could take a section and read it for us. I've sort of divided into three parts. So maybe if Lisa, if you go first, and then Dia, and then Cindy. That's how we will close our time together. So if you just have one moment, I'll share my screen. And again, I think this poem is also by the same artist, Ivaka One, that created the mural. And as you can see, it's called Comforting Sounds. And so I'll invite Lisa to start us off as soon as I figure out how to get the words to appear.
Although these broken things might seem never ending, we are still here with our dreams intact.
Although these broken things, the birds keep singing, and we listen still. We carry this tune until our dreams are fulfilled.
Hope you're muted, Cindy.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Because although these broken things might seem never ending, these comforting sounds will keep playing still.
Amen.
Very nice.
Amen.
So I just want to thank you again. I really enjoyed it. I hope that you did as well. And look forward to the upcoming programming that is continuing through the week, I think, and beyond.
Yes, that's the plan.
That's
Yeah.
the plan. We just
Thank you, Andrea. This was really nice. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
hope you'll join us on Monday. I'm one of the panelists on it. It's called From Hip Hop to Health Equity. Monday
Ooh.
at
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll definitely. What time is it?
1 o'clock.
Okay. I'll try and make that work. That would be great.
Andrea, thank you very much for hosting us, hosting the images, hosting the conversation, and leading us through to a whole new place. This is what art's supposed
Yeah.
to do.
Very peaceful.
Very peaceful. Thank you for centering us in the work and the collaboration that we are all a part of now. We just
Thank you.
are. We just are.
Yeah.
It's just happening. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you again for Lisa and Cindy for joining us, Andrea for leading us, and we look forward to many more of these as we move forward.
Amazing. Thank
for
you.
being here today.
Thank you. Have a
Bye.
great day.
Bye.
Bye.